Welcome back, my friends, to another House of Late Dragoon review, this time for Season 3, Episode 3, supposedly the conceptual episode, and honestly, it's just a bottle episode, and I'll confess, this has been my favorite one of the 4 screeners HBO sent out weeks ago, and I'm glad we get to talk about it. But before we unpack all that, please be sure to leave a like, comment, subscribe, you know the drill, let's just get into it, because this entire episode was great. I liked it quite a bit, but I saw the one person say how George would have hated this episode, and I have to disagree completely. This is the type of stuff George loves, because it's basically Aragorn's tax policy in episode format. For those of you who don't know, in a 2014 interview with Rolling Stone, George commented on how he loved Tolkien and The Lord of the Rings, of course, but had a small issue with how The Lord of the Rings concludes. The quote here says, "Lord of the Rings had a very medieval philosophy that if the king was a good man, the land would prosper. We look at real history and it's not that simple. Tolkien can say that Aragorn became king and reigned for 100 years, and he was a wise and good man, but Tolkien doesn't ask the question, what was Aragorn's tax policy? Did he maintain a standing army? What did he do in times of flood and famine? So on and so forth." That's basically this episode with Rhaenyra. She's taken the throne, great. But what about the sheep? We have almost none left. What about the injustices forced on the common folk by the rich? Yes, you need their tax money, but also the common folk outnumber us all and they need to be placated. What about the soldiers who fight for us? They need to be paid. New trade negotiations for food and supplies after that blockade, and so on and so forth. A good chunk of this episode was a technical one, and I find that fascinating. For me, that is fun, but I can also see how for other people's it might have been boring. But also, if you found that boring, then I hate to break it to you, but that's always how Ice and Fire has been. For a good part of the 5th book, Jon Snow is dealing with food storage and supply issues at the Wall. If anything, Ryan Condal was more of a book fan in this episode than ever before. I mean, come on, a fake Targaryen plot? What's more Ice and Fire than that? Speaking of which, the fake Daeron plot, I'll confess, I have no idea what they're going with this, but I don't hate it. The verdict is still on what they plan on doing here, so I'll wait a bit more to really judge this, but it does serve to put that paranoia label on Rhaenyra, which is this episode's goal. They even brought out that A24 trailer thing they do for creepier horror films using the colengo.
We, of course, normally play with the hair on the string. Colengo is where you turn the bow over and play with the wood.
And then the string stoppage.
Too many white people are getting nervous.
No.
Try and push the idea that something's not right. Maybe she's going a bit crazy. But I don't know, it feels lazy to do that to her, especially when you have the anxiety of the previous owners leaving you with such a mess to deal with, on top of your son dying just a few days ago, your former best friend whose father you killed, by the way, may or may not be keeping information from you that directly challenges your rule, all the petitions, lack of finances, and your uncle boyfriend wanting to go conquer the world because of an ayahuasca trip he went on. Brother, we can't even conquer Dorne. What the hell are you talking about? But to what I said earlier, this is a giant small council episode, but what makes it a little frustrating is that a lot of our small council members are kind of uninteresting on their own. Some of my favorite scenes in the original Game of Thrones was the small council stuff with Varys, Littlefinger, Pycelle, Tyrion, and Cersei, and every single one of them had their own scenes that set them up beautifully. There's almost no time spent on any of the small council members in all 2 seasons of House of the Dragon, to where I find them discussing politics entertaining. Mysaria and Daemon's back and forth is cute, but for about 5 seconds. Maester Orwell was always a whatever character, and Corlys, if he's not on the docks or a ship, doesn't really have much to do. Speaking of which, Corlys, I think, had the best moment in the episode, and he's not wrong at all for that outburst. Rhaenyra was definitely in the wrong here, and while she has a lot on her plate, she couldn't see that her biggest ally needed her, and she failed there. But again, giant small council episode where the best scenes were outside the small council, where she's conducting small council business. But for the most part, I quite liked the episode, a lot actually. Again, of the 4 I've seen, this was my favorite one, and it really is the beginning of the season for me. I don't know if you guys will agree with me on this, but it does feel night and day different than the last 2. Obviously, the pace has slowed down a bit, and it serves to set up the rest of the season, sure, but it's a good premiere episode that wasn't really a premiere. And so, every now and then I like to check out what the audience reaction to the episode was to see where everyone was at, and here's a few comments I found that were worth discussing. Frisky Dango says, "I don't know, the music, the tone really annoyed me. They were just trying to make it like a Jordan Peele movie. And this particular show in this world, not for me. You know what, that's fair. Had this episode come out when this style wasn't overused in trailers, I might have liked it better. Again, they're doing a pretty bad job of making Rhaenyra look crazy, if that is the goal, where she's really just someone who is overwhelmed with bullshit from incompetent people. I can't speak to ever being in a managerial position, but I would imagine people who are and watch this episode would probably come away liking the character of Rhaenyra a bit better and sympathizing with her. Bird here says, the episode was okay, but why would Daemon take Daeron but just leave his dragon? Yeah, this is something I saw a lot of people say, and this is not me defending the show, because it's a weird decision not to do that or even comment on it, but this is me trying to make sense of it. Daemon knows a lot about dragons and their nature. I want to make the case that without its writer, and Daemon knows this, the dragon will be inert and mope around, not being much of a threat to them. Rhaenyra didn't die in season 1, but him running off to Essos and breaking his link with his dragon caused it to fuck off for a bit before linking with someone else it thinks is Rhaenyra, because, same blood, kinda. The Rhaenyra stuff, look, it's show original only, so who really knows, but they should have brought in some dragon keepers with them to have Tessarion chained up or something. Or, again, maybe Daemon knows that without Daeron, the dragon isn't a threat, but then you have to ask, why wouldn't it follow Daeron if it's linked with him? It's a good question, and the person here is right to ask this. Feminine says, masterpiece episode. It is exactly the type of episode Daenerys needed in the final season of Game of Thrones. Again, I don't think this episode did a good job of showing why Rhaenyra will go insane. If anything, this episode showed us why she needed a vacation. With Daenerys in Game of Thrones, I want to say that her losing her dragons caused her to go a bit bonkers, like how they were pillars holding her together, and by the end of it, 2 of the 3 were gone, and there was nothing mentally there to stop her from enacting that fire and blood part of her house words. If anything, this episode set up Rhaenyra's paranoia fairly well, and why some decisions she'll be making will be tough ones that she can't get away from. And finally, Penguin says, Hot D is suffering because Rhaenyra as a main protagonist is not a likable hero. There's no one to root for. She's a disaster as a ruler and queen. Sounds like a Trump quote, by the way. The Greens are no better. How do you write a story where you don't want anyone to win? I think this is a bit of an exaggeration, but this person is not wrong that everyone kinda sucks, and there isn't a Duncan the Tall-esque character to be charmed by, like in Night of the Seven Kingdoms. House of the Dragon's biggest issue will always be not having a character you can connect with or see yourself in, like how Jon Snow is the every man thinks they are, or how Tyrion is sharp and intelligent and is usually given the best stuff, and it makes you want to root for him, especially when he's doing something funny or interesting. House of the Dragon lacks those types of characters, and it's a very dreary show. Why George thought this would have been a better spin-off than Dunk and Egg is beyond me, and yes, George did say to HBO that they should have done this show because it has all the stuff people liked about Game of Thrones, but I guess it didn't have that one thing from Thrones that it needed. But guys, that is it for today. Thank you so much for watching and supporting the channel with all your likes and comments and so on and forth. It's been a crazy summer so far with the World Cup and the insane heat, and seeing you all being so kind and wonderful makes me really appreciative of all of you. So thank you so much for all the support, whether it's, again, Patreon or YouTube memberships or just leaving a like and comment. It helps out a lot. Once again, thank you so much for watching and supporting the channel. I'll see you all next time. Have a good one.